Wasn't really ready, no, I had to grow up, but it's so heavy and I'm feeling low. Unlearning all that was wrong for me. And I wish somebody would.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Just Vibes room. Do you guys like the vibe that I'm bringing to you today? I'm kind of like doing this preppy style with the outfit and whatnot. But yeah, glad to have you guys back in the Just Vibes room. And today is very special. I'm really excited for today because I have my very first guest.
Just vibes, just vibes.
Okay, so today in the Just Vibes room, very special guest for you guys. He is a writer who often works as a production assistant in LA. He's worked on very amazing projects such as Insecure, All American, Netflix's The Perfect Couple, and so much more. He's a hip hop fan, history buff, and basically my brother in law, an overall creative. So, welcome to the Just Vibes room, BJ. Hi, BJ.
That was an interesting introduction.
Yeah, he's on the laptop, guys, and I have you here. Was it a correct introduction? Do you feel like it was correct?
Yeah, it was relatively correct, I think.
Well, I'll give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself as well.
Sure.
You want to tell us a little bit about you?
Well, my name is BJ. I have been working in Los Angeles for almost a decade now, which is crazy. Still on the grind, still chasing my dreams, and yeah, just trying to write as much as I can, work as much as I can, keep my bills paid because it's really expensive out here.
Sure.
Yeah.
How long have you been in LA?
It'll be 10 years this August.
Oh, okay. 10 years. That's crazy. That's a long time.
Uh-huh. It is a long, long time.
Has it felt like 10 years?
Yes and no. I feel like I've lived a lot of lives
Mhm.
in that time because just so many things have changed.
Mhm.
A lot of the people have stayed the same. Some of the, like, a lot of my core people have stayed the same on my journey, but there's definitely people that I've picked up and dropped off along the way. And so it is interesting that I've been here long enough that that's happened.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm still trying to find my way and, see what God has for me.
That makes sense. So are you doing like production assistant now, or are you doing something else that's like more administrative?
Yeah, so right now I'm an office production assistant.
Mhm.
So I'm on the office side of things, which is a whole different monster from when you're on set wrangling background or doing all the zillion other things that they'll have you doing as a set PA. Because when you're in the office, it still functions like a basic administrative office. So there is the creative aspect, but like my job doesn't have anything to do with the creative aspect. I'm getting people lunches. Sometimes that's the writers' lunches. I'm at least going to pick them up. Sometimes I'm getting lunch for everyone else that works in the office on our floor. So like the whole production team, the assistant directors that are like in prep that are in the office, I'm getting them lunch. Our accountants, because they're in the office. So, it's a lot of people, a lot of meals to hopefully not mess up.
Oh, do people get like really mad when you mess up? Like they act all
No, it's embarrassing.
One thing I did want to ask you is like what in your opinion is the coolest project you've ever been a part of or worked on?
Ooh, that's really tough.
It's for you though, not like for what other people would perceive it as like what your opinion is.
It's tough because Insecure was always cool because that was a pivotal, like, Insecure was the first like big show I got to work on when I like broke out of the Hallmark Channel world that I had been in for the first 2 years of production that I was in LA. And that kind of opened the doors where I began to meet a lot of different people that helped me get jobs on basically all the different shows that I've ended up working on the
Mm.
last 5 or 6 years. Um, dang, the coolest. Mhm. That honestly, uh, I've gotten to work a little bit on The Mandalorian, like the Star Wars TV shows,
That's cool.
and
Star Wars fans.
yeah, I'm not like a huge Star Wars fan these days, but like I did have a Star Wars phase growing up,
Mhm.
and there was uh one of the shows that I worked on. I don't know if it was Mandalorian or it might have been one of the days I was day playing on Ahsoka, which is like the Rosario Dawson one.
Yeah.
Um, the Hayden Christensen that plays Anakin Skywalker in the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
He appeared as Anakin Skywalker, like in a flashback that they were doing. And so I was on set with him, like doing like a Clone Wars scene. And that was just, it was crazy because, he's got his lightsaber out and all this stuff. And I just kept thinking, 13-year-old me would be freaking out right now.
That's
Like this,
iconic.
this is crazy. And, yeah, and I've gotten to meet every once in a while I've gotten to meet people that I looked up to when I first, the show that I'm currently on, one of the directors is someone whose work I admired
Mhm.
when I was starting. And so it was kind of like it was just crazy, you walk because he's a regular guy, like they're people too, but
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where everyone appreciates. Some people maybe they don't, but like he was very down to earth, which was really nice because sometimes you meet people that are not down to earth. And I've
I
had I've I've ruined a few people for some of my family because I'm like, oh, that person's not that great.
I hate that. They say never meet your idols or never meet like your
Never meet your heroes.
up to though. Oh my
But
gosh.
this was a time where I met someone who I genuinely looked up to at one point, and they were just a genuinely like nice person.
Mhm.
And they're also just really talented. So it was great to like get to meet them and just, be a fly on the wall.
Yeah. That's really cool. Would you say there's been like a project that you couldn't wait for it to be over? You were just like, oh my gosh, like let me just pay these bills, but I cannot wait for this to be done. Like, I hate this. Don't say what it is, but you can say like yes or
Oh, I don't know if it's like that. One of the one of the hardest things like when you're in production is because a lot of times people don't realize how much work goes into making a 30-minute episode of TV or an hour episode of TV. And, sometimes, you may be on day, it could be Friday, but it's really Saturday morning because it's like 3 in the morning and you've
no.
got at least 2 more hours of this night shoot left and you're on hour 65 on the clock for the week.
Is that
And you
a lot?
gotta, Mhm.
Is that a lot?
People get OT all the time. I mean, they
Uh-huh.
pay you like when you're making double time at that point.
Yeah.
Fine. It's very rare. Like once we got back from COVID and the strikes, um, they try to minimize the amount of times that happens, but sometimes you still end up on those situations where you're working a 65-hour week. Uh,
Mm.
but you have to remind yourself this is like the stuff that I prayed for. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it's the stuff that I used to pray for. And so like one time there was one time where I kind of had a bad day when I was working on Star Wars. It was just like everything I like I didn't do one thing right or I dropped the ball on something
Mhm.
and it caused a problem for a second. And so I was really down for a little bit, but then I also was like having to remind myself, you know, I used to pray for to get to have a bad day like that. You know what I mean? Because yeah, because when I first moved to LA, I lived on a couch, and it took me a while to actually get into productions of any kind.
Mm.
So
That's good to remember though. Like when you're experiencing like tough days, working on something, you know. if that's what you wanted all this time. People say we're always living in at least one of our prayers. So remember. So I'm starting kind of like a mini series, I guess, for maybe the next couple of episodes where I talk to like different creatives in different fields and whatnot. And I want to know from your side of things, like what does being a creative mean to you?
Mm. You know, and when you sent those questions like a week or two ago,
It's
I
okay.
was trying
No
to think
pressure.
of
This
all the
isn't like some scholarly
such a deep
something.
existential question. No, it's hard to say, but I guess like being a creative for me is just getting to express and reflect like my thoughts and just like feelings about the world
Mhm.
in that moment. And that's going to change from project to project or just depending on my interests, uh, what I may be really focused on in that moment that may all seep into like my writing or my scripts.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think being creative for me is just sharing your thoughts and views on the of the world with
Yeah.
the world, I guess, if that makes sense.
Mhm. That's a great way to look at it. I feel like there's different kinds of people. I don't know where I heard this before, but somebody was like, "Oh, there were like a group of people or like a few different people looking at a bridge, and one person said like, 'Oh, do you see this, this, and this that's wrong with the bridge? I know how I can fix that or whatever. Or I know I can grow up to fix that.' And then another person said, like, 'I can grow up to make a bridge just like that.' And then somebody else said, 'I can make something better than a bridge.' And I feel like that's like the three different types of people in this world, like the way your brain works.
Mhm.
Some people are analytical, some people are creative, some people are both, but it's just like the way you look at the world, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that's kind of the gist of it.
No, definitely.
I know you said that when you first got to LA, times were kind of hard. And I'm
Yeah.
sure it's like that for everybody who packs up and, moves to a city with that sort of reputation, whether it's like LA or New York, trying to make it, trying to
Mhm.
get to know people and like network and stuff like that, and at least get your foot in the door. But even besides like being in TV and film, just like in general, I feel like, especially with creative careers, it's really hard when you're doing something that you're so passionate about not to tie it to, like, who you are as a person,
Oh, yeah.
and
It
I'm
is
sure you've seen that with a lot of people.
it is so, so hard not to tie your value and your worth
Yeah,
as a person to, like, whatever your definition of success is, right? And in many ways, I feel like I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of even getting myself on the path of what my ultimate goals are.
yeah,
But at the same time, I know that I've come a long way.
mhm,
And I think that is successful, right? You know, I somehow just by being myself and being a hard worker, um, and being able to handle most of the difficult situations that I've encountered on set.
yeah,
I that's been able to like help me propel at least, you know, I'm not stopped. I may still be going in a steady line and I'm trying to have it start inclining at some point,
mhm,
but I know that I'm at least moving and making moves.
yeah.
Um, but I also know that there's so much more I could still be doing. So that's a little tough.
But that's
Um,
the difference. You know how many people, like, go to LA, go to New York and stuff like that, and then they're back 2 years later, either because they got tired of fighting or they just decided to do something else, or they said they were gonna go back, but then they didn't, that type of thing. So, you really
oh,
stuck it.
yeah. I know. Well, that was kind of always the thing. It was just when I would have these moments where someone would say, "Oh, you know, why don't you go home for a little bit?" Like if money felt like it was really tight or something, my parents would say, "You know, you can always come home if you need to and like to regroup." And I just I can't bring myself to do that because I think I've been fortunate enough that I have, um, even though even though in my head I sometimes try to convince myself that I don't, I do have a genuinely like pretty good support system and extended community out here.
Mhm.
Some people that I knew when I was in college that were just like my film school friends that I'm still really good friends with, or people that I just met along the way
Yeah.
here in LA. And um, so thankfully I do have a lot of support. And that is one nice thing is because I do have so many creative friends that are all chasing their own individual dreams,
Yeah.
you kind of have that support system of just being like, remembering, trying to remember at least that you're not the only person who might be struggling in that moment.
Yeah. I was looking at the Kiki Palmer podcast, and she was interviewing Marseille Martin, and they were talking about like some show she did on like Disney Plus or something like that. It only ran one season, they took it off, it failed.
Mm,
But I don't know if it failed so much as that they didn't really like the audience and they pulled it. But she was basically saying that you could look successful from the outside. You could have a million things going right. But there's always like this one project, this one thing that you really, really care about. And if that is going wrong, it just feels like everything is going wrong.
oh
I
yeah.
especially in LA, there's a lot of people who are chasing like this one dream or two dreams type of things. And
Hmm.
you continue to like experience failure. I've even like felt this with myself. Like if this one project continues to experience failure, it's hard to feel like you aren't a failure when
Yeah,
things around you are failing. How do you separate your work from yourself? Like, have you been able to do that?
I would say yes and no,
Mhm.
as I have this internal, part of my work is myself, if that makes sense, where I have this internal drive where I'm constantly thinking about different stories or stories that I want to tell or stories that I'm currently like in the middle of telling.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm always thinking about those things, even if I'm not necessarily doing the physical typing in front of my laptop.
Yeah.
Um, but I do, yeah, it's really tough. It's genuinely really tough. I think some people it's easier for them. And I think it kind of varies from person to person. Um, but I think also a lot of my interests tend to overlap with the creative work that I do.
Mhm.
Um, so it sometimes it is hard to separate it, if that makes sense.
Something everybody's probably still working on a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah.
You have
And
feel like you have a lot of friends who aren't like or people around you who aren't in your field
um,
adjacent.
that's what's really funny. I think if I um when I'm being honest with myself, because my fiance has said that to me. She was like, you don't have any regular people friends. And I'll say, yeah, I do.
Bad thing. I'm just
And
asking.
then they'll be like, it's just a lot of them are not in LA. It's the problem. But um, I do know a few people, and it's always nice to have friends that they just happen to live in LA and they're just, they're in business or finance or something like
Yeah.
that, or they're doctors or nurses. But most of those people are people that I've like met at church,
Yeah.
something like that. It's not, um, I'm not encountering those people a lot when I'm at work, obviously.
Yeah.
And you end up spending because we work doctors and nurses hours. Like we're definitely not doctors and nurses. Like we're not saving lives, which is a constant thing you'll hear on set. Remember, guys, we're just making TV. We are not saving lives, but well, not a lot, but you should. But I have had assistant directors try to say that to people. But because you work 12-hour days minimum a lot of times for people, and you're doing that Monday through Friday, if you work just your exact 12 hours Monday through Friday, it's a lot of hours already. That's like 60 hours just off rip. So it is hard not to kind of bond with people that you spend so much time with. But you'll, like I said, you'll meet people. I think it's easier. My friends that are from here,
Mhm.
I tend to meet people through them that are not in the film business, and they're
Yeah.
just regular Angelinos.
Yeah, Angelinos is so funny. I don't know why. Whenever people say that, it just sounds really funny to me. If you're in the creative field at all, or even just in general, if you're in a field where networking is like a big part of it, you have to like the most successful people aren't the people who have like a really long resume coming into it. I feel like the most successful people and people who get to where they want to be quicker are people who can go up and talk to people and just meet people and feel comfortable doing that. And if you don't have that or you're not comfortable with that, especially like in a city like LA, New York, even like Atlanta and Dallas, I feel like it can really be a struggle. Do you feel like at Southern or even like in high school, you were the type of person to just go up and talk to people?
No, I'm not. I once if someone comes up to me and starts talking to me, I'm fine. I'm very comfortable and I can carry on a conversation pretty well.
Mhm.
But I tend to have a hard time just walking up to people and introducing myself and then starting a conversation out of thin air.
Same.
But it is one thing that I do try to work on. There are people that I do know that um have given me a lot of good insight that and I could credit some of my just creative growth that if I hadn't, gotten out of my shelf and just,
Yeah.
gotten out of my shell and just walked up to them and just, hey, just I'm BJ, I blah blah blah, usually that's on set, but I do sometimes wonder where I'd be. But then there's also times where there's people that I look back that I didn't never took that opportunity with. And I kind of regret that I never just like went up to somebody and said, hey, BJ, I'm one of the PAs. Just want to let you like introduce myself just in case you ever need anything.
Yeah. It's hard when you're not naturally like that.
Hmm.
You know, when I moved to Dallas, that was the first time I actually looked around and was like, oh my God, I have to make friends.
Yeah.
My whole life, like either people made friends with me because I'm friends with a lot of like extroverts who just adopt introverts and just came and grabbed me. Or like, I've made other friends through people I've known my whole life. And it wasn't like I had to go out and like get them. So I don't know, it's weird like having to not know anybody and like try to make friends or try to network and whatnot. And I don't know anybody to start with. So
Oh
weird.
no, the people I know that I've met that moved to LA on the strength of their dream and that they're gonna chase it and they didn't know a single person when they came out here and then I'll meet them on set or something. I have so much respect for those people because I don't know how I would have survived if I had come out here without knowing a single person.
I'm
Because
sure.
I slept on a couch with four of my college friends that had graduated from my film program a few years earlier than me that
Mhm.
I had made friends with when I was a freshman and sophomore. And to this day, I'm back living with one of those original people currently.
Mhm.
And it's just kind of one of those things where I don't know where I would be if I had tried. I think I probably would have given up. I think it
Mm.
would have been too scared if
Yeah,
I a single person.
it's a lot harder that way. Well, for most
Mhm.
people, I feel like.
From
For most people, let's see. But yeah. Well, since you started off like on the couch and stuff like that, like most people do when they move to LA, do you have any advice for like anybody else who maybe fresh out of college wants to do what you did, or wants to do like any career in like a big city where they don't necessarily have like a family member to put them up there yet, or something like that?
well, the first piece of advice is if you have a late 90s Honda and you're considering moving to LA, trade that bad boy in before you come
Yeah.
here. Because I got my Honda stolen twice in the first year that I lived in LA. So don't do that.
Wait,
But
twice you got it back the first time?
yeah, I got it back both times.
The police went and got it?
Uh, the first time, yes, but it was because they were idiots and tried to register my car at the DMV. They tried to like forge my signature and sign the car over to themselves. And the second time, I think it was just some kids that decided to take my car for a joyride because they found it a month later with basically nothing taken out of it, just a mile from where I was currently living.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Not twice.
Yeah, so don't drive the late 90s Hondas in the big cities, at least without a club on your steering wheel.
Nice.
Um,
Oh, I'm sorry. You go ahead first. You go first.
no, but seriously though, I think if you feel the calling and you feel like what you ultimately want, you're only going to be able to get in a place like LA or New York,
Mhm.
it's at least worth a try because if you don't try, you're not going to know. But the big thing with that too is that most people that move to LA move back home within a year, and
Mm.
statistically. And so if you can just survive your first year, most people are going to be okay. So
Yeah.
you get to that 13th month, like you get to month 13, you'll probably be okay.
Yeah. What about like I know you said you work like 12-hour shifts at the bare minimum. That's like 60 hours a week.
Mhm.
How do people take care of themselves like that? I feel like just jumping into that, like from just living a regular like 9 to 5 schedule, or even just coming straight out of college, like you're gonna get sick every single week or something like that. Like that just feels like
Tough.
really my body.
You have to be diligent about when you do have the opportunity to get 8 hours of sleep, actually getting 8 hours of sleep.
Mhm.
Um, one thing I've always struggled with is like eating right.
Yeah.
So you try to force yourself to eat right. Um, which is you can't always eat right because sometimes like things are gonna come up.
Yeah.
But yeah, like those are the big things, just try to get rest when you can and try to minimize your stress.
Yeah.
I think I've caused a lot of health issues for myself just by stressing on things that I have zero control over.
Mhm. That makes a lot of sense. Stress will take you out first,
Mhm.
combined with like somebody who sneezed on you and just make the worst cold or flu you've ever had in your life.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy. Well, we have a few minutes left. So one more question for you. I've seen this phrase that some people have said. Some people agree, some people disagree. Do you agree that everyone only gets one great or groundbreaking idea in their lifetime?
No.
No.
Um, I think there's too many examples of people, especially like in my industry,
Mhm.
that have done so many groundbreaking things and so many different eras that I think it's hard. Like that alone proves. Now, I think it's hard also because what is groundbreaking? You know what I mean? It's like
Like world changing or just like switches up the industry. Like some people are gonna remember you for or write a little piece on after you die.
yeah. I mean, I think it probably varies from person to person, but I also hear from but well, it is possible. I think there are some people that they have that one good idea and then they never have another idea again.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't think it applies for every single person
Yeah. Okay.
because there's just too many people, especially in the film world, that
Mhm.
have had just so many groundbreaking ideas and so many different eras. You
Yeah,
know, Steven Spielberg has had
that's
just
true.
so many different ideas. Um, Spike Lee has sustained himself since the mid '80s. You know what I mean?
True.
He
Yeah.
he won. He was 60 years old, I think, before he got his Oscar. It was like they gave him an honorary Oscar because they were like, sorry that you've never officially won an Oscar. And then within like 2 years, Black Klansman came out and he won an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay with Jordan Peele.
So you got
So
an apology Oscar before the real Oscar.
yeah, it's crazy.
That's sad.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. That's really sad. Sometimes I see people like get their awards, their Grammy, their Oscar, stuff like that later on in their life. And like, I fought for this 40 years. If you're 40 years old, you can do it. Don't worry about it. But I'm like, that sounds amazing. And it's very hopeful, I'm sure, to a lot of people. But also at the same time, I do not want to wait till I'm 50 for my blessing. Please don't
Oh
have
yeah.
my story. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I think at one point I had read that the average age for like a first time staff writer on a TV show
Mhm.
was 36.
36.
And the first time that I had heard that, I was probably 25. And I did not like that because I was thinking, that's another 11 years. I don't know if I can wait that long.
Yeah.
But now, now I'll be 32 in a couple months, and 36 isn't that far away because it goes faster. So,
I mean, I understand that, but at the same time, if the average person is like 36, I feel like how do they even stay in touch with like how a Gen Z and everybody even represented in that writer's room? I feel like
it's,
that's
it's
important.
hard. Well, and I think with writing, especially, there is an innate talent that you need to have. There's like a basic talent, but um, hard work and persistence can beat talented laziness a lot. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, and you'll hear that from writers that have never stopped working essentially, and they've been working for 30 plus years. So yeah, I think it is kind of just about being consistent and, remembering that your next script is always your best script. That's what people always say. That's the one I'm about to write. That's the one I'm most excited about.
That's
Uh,
cool. I like that saying.
mm,
I like that one. Okay, fun question before time runs out. If you couldn't do anything in the film world, you couldn't do anything with a camera, like no photography, nothing like that. What do you think you would be doing with your life?
I would probably be doing.
What would you want to be if you couldn't be
It
any
would
of
be something. It would definitely be something history related.
Mhm.
Um, Probably American history, but it would
Well, you
be.
be a good history professor, like college professor?
I would hate to deal with the paperwork and
Yeah.
students, I think, but I think it would definitely be something involving American history. Um, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you for your time, BJ. I want to say before you go, I don't just like you because you're my sister's fiance. I like you as a person too.
I appreciate that.
I think you should know that. The family does like you as a person.
Thank you.
Well,
I think she's a little jealous of that, to be honest. She'll
maybe,
never openly admit it, but
might not. Yeah. And I like how both of you, Shalay and you, have let me grow up as well. Because I met you when I was what, 15, 16? And I feel like to be able to like hang out with you guys, go to a concert, or like for Shalay to just talk to me and for you
and
to just talk to me like as a peer, I feel like that's really cool to be grown
they
up
would have,
guys to let me grow up.
yeah, she would not have had a good time at the J. Cole concert that we went to.
No, she did not have. That's why she
Oh,
wasn't invited. That's why she wasn't invited.
yeah.
But yeah. Thank you so much, PJ, for being my first guest. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. That's a first guess. That's a lot of pressure. Hopefully this was
Yeah.
good.
It was good.